Badass of the Week is produced by High Five Content. Hello and welcome back to Badass of the Week. My name is Ben Thompson and I am joined by producer Andrew Jacobs. We began on Tuesday telling the story of Doc Holliday, one of the most famous gunfighters in American history. We told the story of his early life and everything kind of leading up to his arrival in Tombstone, Arizona. Now we're going to continue the story. He has arrived in Tombstone. He's going to meet Wyatt Earp, and things are about to go down. In September 1880, Doc Holliday arrives in Tombstone, Arizona. He is there at the request of his good friend Wyatt Earp. Earp is a former railroad worker. He's been in trouble for being a horse thief and escaped to prison. He was a brothel enforcer at one point, but mostly he's known now as a lawman. He arrived a year earlier looking for fortune and profit in like this silver mining town that has come up. Wyatt's brothers already live there when he gets there. They have a stagecoach line, they own a saloon, and they also work as lawmen in the town. So Wyatt's brother Virgil, his older brother Virgil, is the deputy because the previous chief of police was killed in a gunfight. So Virgil takes over, and he's the leader of he's the chief lawman in town. Wyatt works for him. The town is pretty rough, so they call for Doc Holliday, their buddy Doc Holliday, to come provide not just as a faro dealer, not just as a dentist, but also as muscle, as a backup if they need help, which is going to come up. Okay.
Just a quick side note, though. I mean, would this story be as interesting if it took place in some other town?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? It's like it's in Tombstone.
Tombstone.
Like, you know, the setting. If it was just in Evansville, Arizona, does anyone care? I don't know.
Yeah.
So
seems unlikely.
Sometimes the place, the name of the place, it matters so much.
Yeah, I mean, gunfight at the OK Corral has a good sound to it, has a good ring to it.
A nice ring.
Mm-hmm.
Although I think someone said, I think I read that it kind of like happened like maybe like 6 like spots down from the OK Corral.
yeah, it happened just outside the OK Corral, like in an empty lot next to it. But that doesn't have the gunfight at the empty lot next to the OK Corral doesn't have the same ring to it.
Yeah. The gunfight on Main Street.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Even though they could have used the gunfight in Tombstone. I mean,
yeah, right.
Like,
the Tombstone massacre.
Yeah, right. I mean, like they totally just, swept right over that missed that one. I mean, that was a layup. Right? Anyway, okay, please continue.
Okay. Yes, so it's this frontier town. It's on the way up. They're building a lot of new stuff there. People are making money there, and we're in the Wild West, so there is an outlaw element involved here. And the element here is known as, it's a group that calls themselves the Cowboys. They're like a group, like a gang that operates outside of town, and they are the enemies of Wyatt Earp and by extension, Doc Holliday. And Andrew, I think this works out well for us because you, I think, are a Niners fan, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I like the Eagles.
So we all hate the Cowboys.
Yeah, we all hate the Cowboys. And then like Tombstone's in Arizona. The Cardinals used to be in the same division as them. So they probably hate the Cowboys just as much in Tombstone as the Phoenix Cardinals did when they were still a team.
Listen, if you're not a Cowboys fan, you pretty much hate the Cowboys. That's just
it's kind of required, yeah. Okay, so these Cowboys, this is the gang. Their main guys for this story is a guy named Ike Clanton. And Ike Clanton and the Cowboys, they have this racket where they'll ride down to Mexico, which is a couple hours on horseback from Tombstone. You head south and across the border to Mexico. You raid the first border town you can find. You kill people. You steal all their stuff. You take everything that's good. You raid stagecoaches, all that stuff. You bring it all back across the border into Tombstone, and you sell it to these people who have just found silver. And
just want to clarify, I like to call it Old Mexico.
Yes.
when we're talking about the West, you have New Mexico and Old Mexico. That's
yes. And like this is like very recently the U.S., right? Because the Mexican-American War was not. I guess this part of Arizona, was taken from during the Mexican-American War. Couple decades ago, like in terms of the story, 20, 30 years earlier, this was Mexico, but now it's Arizona.
I think I want to bring that back. I'm just going to start referring to Mexico as old Mexico.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a little spice to life.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So these guys would go down there, they'd commit all these crimes, steal everything, bring it back, sell it in Tombstone, and that was their racket. And there was weird jurisdiction stuff because there was no border patrol was weak at this point, I guess. I feel like there's a joke here that I don't want to make.
Border patrol?
They haven't built the wall yet,
Listen, real open borders. Let's be clear here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so these guys could go do this, and there was no real jurisdiction issue because the Mexican police weren't going to come across into Arizona, and the American police couldn't enforce things that were happening in another country at this time. So for whatever reason, this is what they were doing. They'd rob stagecoaches, they'd raid towns, and Wyatt and Virgil and their other brother Morgan Earp, they're the law in town, and these guys are riding around like they own the place. They're jerks, they're criminals, they're gangsters, and it's these guys' job to keep them in line. And on top of that, Wyatt Earp, he's kind of like he gets made out as one thing, like the ultimate sheriff, Wild West sheriff. But Wyatt Earp was like a hard drinker. He was a partier. He was he liked to get drunk and get into fights. And he didn't like these guys. And it might have been more personal than just, I have to uphold the law in town.
There's only so much room for, riffraff, right?
Yes.
He was the riffraff. He didn't need other people making it even worse.
Yes. And, Doc Holliday is famous, at this point, he's pissing everybody off. So he's great at pissing people off. And he comes across some of these cowboys and gets into some arguments with them. At one point, they accuse him of being part of one of the stagecoach robbings that maybe they had done. And it actually attaches some law enforcement get involved and have to talk to Doc Holliday about his involvement in this stagecoach robbery, which makes him super angry. He hates that. At one point, he's at a fancy restaurant in town, and the manager is like, well, didn't you rob a stagecoach? And Doc punches him in the face and gets arrested for assault.
I mean, is there any other response to that question?
Yes. This is also possibly the Cowboys is where the origins of the Kate was a prostitute stories come from. They were telling people that it's possible that's where that starts. Okay. Anyway, Doc Holliday doesn't like these guys. Wyatt Earp doesn't like these guys. The people of Tombstone are being kind of taken advantage of by these guys. The Mexicans are definitely getting taken advantage of by him. And okay, so there's this rivalry. The Earps and the Cowboys, they're going to have a showdown. And that's, every time these Cowboys show up in town, the Earps show up, they club them with their revolver, they handcuff them, they make them spend a night in jail. The Cowboys get out, they write a bunch of death threats to Virgil, who's the head of he's the Wyatt, we kind of think of him as being the leader, but Virgil is the chief of police here. And so they keep writing letters about how they're going to kill Virgil. Virgil says that he outlaws guns inside buildings in the city limits. So all of this kind of is leading up to there's going to be a showdown. So the showdown kind of begins on the night of October 24th. Ike Clanton, who's one of if he's not the leader of the Cowboys, is very senior. He heads into town with two of his buddies, Frank and Tom McLaury. And these guys show up drunk. They don't want to check their guns. They're going to different bars. They're getting drunk. They're causing trouble. They're being loud and obnoxious. And the Earps decide let's go mess with these guys and see if now they're inside our city limits. They're in our jurisdiction. We can arrest them in here. Let's see if we can make them do something that we can arrest them for.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's entrapment these guys.
Yeah. That's a tactic.
So they send in their buddy Doc Holliday, who is going to be playing a central role.
Piss
here.
anyone off.
Doc Holliday is great at pissing people off. So he finds Ike Clanton and starts making fun of him at one of the bars, and this is one of those, we see this scene with kind of Johnny Ringo in the movie, but he goes in and starts talking trash to Ike in public, making fun of him, mocking him. And Ike gets angry and leaps at Doc Holliday to kind of start choking him. But then Virgil's right there, and he pistol whips him with his pistol, grabs him by his ear, drags him out into court, and has him, or drags him out to like prison. He puts him in jail for the night. While that's going on, the two brothers, Tom and Frank McClory, they get basically, Wyatt finds them, and like they've tied up their horse improperly. Like to an area you're not supposed to type your horse. Yeah, it's like a parking ticket, but he writes them basically a parking ticket for parking their horses wrong. And then Tom shows up and starts arguing with him about like, this is BS. What are you doing? And so Wyatt punches him in the face and knocks him unconscious. Which I'm sure many parking attendants wish they could do.
Yeah. I like how there's just a lot of like punching in the face.
Yeah, I mean, you see those old cowboy movies and it's just like every bar has just like a dude flying through the window and everybody's hitting each other with broken bottles and stuff. Like this is what it sounds like. It was like this. It doesn't sound that weird. There's
no guff being taken in Tombstone. That is for sure. It is. No, you said absolutely. What? Sock right in the face.
You can't write me a parking ticket. Punch.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next morning, Ike and the McClorys are still in town, and Ike starts to send telegraphs to the surrounding area of like, hey, cowboys, like, get over here. We got trouble. Like, the Earps are messing with us. We need to deal with these guys. And the guy at the telegraph office who sends the telegram goes to the Earps after he sends the telegram and is like, hey, we got a problem here. They're asking a bunch of outlaws to show up and fight you guys.
Not exactly a signal chat.
No, exactly. And there is a joke to be made about signal chats not being entirely secure sometimes, too.
That is the joke. Even less secure than a signal chat. Well, maybe not that one.
Okay, and so, and then these guys start running around town talking about how they're going to kill all the Earps. And they're still got their guns, which is illegal. And so this is it, right? This is what Wyatt Earp's been waiting for. These guys have been causing all this trouble, and now it's going to be a showdown. So Wyatt gets Wyatt and Morgan and Virgil. They deputize Doc Holliday, which just means like it's okay now if you want to shoot people, you can shoot bad guys now. You're a cop for the day.
License to kill.
Yes. And they gave him a shotgun, and they head off down to the OK Corral to give Ike Clanton a fight. Okay, so Doc Holliday, this is the slow motion scene that you were talking about earlier, where they're kind of walking down.
They take a long, slow walk towards the OK Corral, so we can all soak in their badassery.
Yes. So they get down there, and Ike Clanton is there with his son Billy, his adult son Billy, and Tom and Frank McClory, who were the other two guys that were in town that night. And then there's another dude with them named Billy Claiborne, who hasn't come up yet and isn't really super important to the story. So Virgil gets down there, and he's like, all right, throw up your hands. We're going to disarm you. We're going to arrest you for carrying guns in public. And the cowboys are like, no, this is I know my rights kind of thing. Okay. Wyatt allegedly says, all right, you sons of bitches, you've been looking for a fight, and now you can have one. That's the line that he's credited with. Yes. He's quoted with. Okay. So now you get that Red Dead standoff here, the cowboy movie standoff, where everybody's kind of like pulling the coat back to show the guns, and they're not standing they're standing real close to each other, only a couple feet away.
Yeah, it was like 6 feet away, I think, was the closest ones, right? They've got their itchy, their twitching fingers ready to, draw.
Yeah, you got 4 lawmen, you got 5 cowboys, but 2 of those cowboys are unarmed. Or at least like they're not currently armed. They've got their guns nearby, but not on them. And everybody kind of freezes. And so it's very interesting when you read accounts of the gunfight at the OK Corral, because, they're sitting here, they're staring, they've got their fingers are twitching, the tumbleweeds blowing. And the entire gunfight is like 30 seconds. It's fast. But when you read about it, there's these like blow by blow descriptions of then he shot and that hit there and then this went there and this happened here. And, and it seems impossible that anybody would know all of that. But here's the version that you generally see written. Billy Clanton and Frank McGlory draw first, and they draw their 6 shooters on their hips, but Wyatt's faster. And the story goes that he draws his pistol and he sees both Frank McGlory and Billy Clanton going for him. Billy's got his gun out first and is pointing it at Wyatt's head. Frank McGlory's still going for his when Earp gets his gun up. Earp thinks, like, at least when you hear his description of this, he looks at Billy and realizes, like, Billy is not as good a shot as Frank. Frank's a hardened killer and a better shooter. So I'm going to shoot Frank and hope Billy misses.
I mean, that is some real fast, calculations going on right there.
Yeah, so that's what happens. So he, Earp quick draws, he shoots Frank, hits him in the stomach. He goes down, fires as he's going down, and hits Doc Holliday in the side. Billy shoots at Wyatt's head, misses. And then, the gunfight's on. Everybody's shooting. That other guy, Billy Claiborne, who I said wasn't that important, like, as soon as the guns are fired, he just takes off running, and he's out of the story for the rest of this.
Appropriate.
Yeah, he's out of it. He's like, I'm out of here. Billy. I'm not on any part of this. That's the end of his appearance in this episode. Okay, so everybody's drawn, everybody's shooting. Morgan Earp hits Billy Clanton in the hand. Morgan Earp gets shot through the shoulder by Frank McGlory, who's like laying on the ground because he's been shot in the stomach. Morgan's wounded, but he steadies and shoots Frank McGlory back, hitting him in the head and killing him. Then you've got these 2 guys who are unarmed. Ike Clanton being one of them, Tom McGlory being the other. Ike is like still drunk from last night, and he's got no gun, and he just runs at Wyatt with his arms up and is like, I got no gun. Don't shoot. I don't want this. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. I don't even know these guys. I don't even know how I got here. I'm sorry. And so Wyatt thinks about shooting him, but he's not going to shoot an unarmed guy. So he does what we were just talking about. He punches him in the face, which, of course, you got to do.
Good. Yeah.
Punch him in the face, throw him onto the ground, and tell him to get the hell out of here. He runs for it through the Fly's photography shop, which is an interesting story, the CS Fly and all of that stuff. Like his whole story is fascinating and interesting, and maybe we'll tell it a little bit later. But Ike Clanton runs for it. He runs through the photography shop next door and takes off. The other guy who was not armed was Tom McGlory. His brother has been shot twice and is dying. But Frank has a rifle in his saddlebag of his horse. So he runs to the horse and he gets the horse between him and the Earps who are still shooting. And he starts to pull that Winchester out. And in the movie Tombstone, they do a cool thing where Doc shoots a shotgun up in the air to scare the horse. And when the horse moves, it clears the way for him to shoot at McGlory with the shotgun. I didn't read a description of that historically, but he does blow the dude away with a double-barreled shotgun. So Tom is killed, and after Tom goes down, Doc is awesome. So Doc shoots Tom McGlory with the shotgun, hits him with both barrels of the shotgun, is out of ammo, drops it, pulls a 6-shooter, and starts shooting at Ike Clanton, who's running away. Okay, the gunfight's still going on. Virgil gets shot in the leg, but Billy Clanton is killed. The whole thing's over in 30 seconds. Both McGlorys are dead. Billy Clanton is mortally wounded. He's out of bullets and he dies while trying to reload. Virgil, Morgan, and Doc are all hit, but they're all okay. And Wyatt is completely unscathed, which is just going to be the story of this guy's life. He doesn't get shot.
Just doesn't get shot.
Mm-hmm. And that's the gunfight at the OK Corral. Last 30 seconds, but it's the most famous gunfight in American history. And they reenact it in Tombstone, Arizona to this day. You can go there and watch a reenactment of it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. They do it.
Yeah. And that is, what's interesting, I think, about the gunfight is a lot of those details you got, because a lot of times you think like, oh, that's the end of the story, that happened, these guys killed. Apparently they had all these court hearings and all this testimony. Like there was actual, like, it wasn't just like, well, I feel like in all these westerns and these movies you have these ideas that these people go out and they just like shoot each other and then everyone moves on, right? But in this case, there was like, well, nope, you guys did that and you did this and this is a problem and let's get you in court and there's a judge. And so that's where actually a lot of this information comes from. And there's because
wild.
different people gave different testimonies, there's actually a lot of dispute about what the hell happened, which is reasonable because everyone was shooting at each other. So
yes, and that's wild, right? Because you're right, and I think it even happens like that in the movie. Like they just all ride off into the sunset and the credits play, and it's like, well, these are the lawmen, and they fought those guys. They were the bad guys. Everybody's dead. It's like, and then that's it. Every action movie ends like this. Well, I blew up half the city and killed 75 guys, but I found my girlfriend. I'm gonna put my arm around her, and we're gonna walk off into the sunset.
Taken care of.
And I'll have a fun one-liner, and then we'll ride on. The cop will be like, "Damn it! Why did you have to blow up the library?" And be like, "Books are for losers," and walk off into the distance.
Can you imagine like how many days like in court John McClane had to spend after Die Hard?
So you're saying you killed all of them? You blew up the building?
Like, tell us that part again. We're taking notes here.
Yeah, he's in an interrogation room for like 14 hours. They have him retell the story like 8 times, make sure it matches up.
And then there's the civil lawsuits,
Yes.
The city inquest,
He's sued by the Nakatomi Company.
Yeah.
Damages.
So that's the part of these stories we don't often get. But in this case, because it happened, that's how we actually know it happened. Like,
yes.
It didn't make news like the next day. It took a while for all this to come out.
Yeah. These guys were lawmen, but they still had to like do paperwork on this, and there was a court involved, and they had to go to court and explain why they did what they did. And they are exonerated. So Doc has to go to court. He testifies, and it's determined that like he didn't do anything wrong, and he was totally justified in blasting those guys with the shotgun. And it seems like that's going to be okay. They get off. Nothing bad happens. But you've still got these cowboys out there. Ike Clanton's still alive, and his son is dead now, and he's not happy about that. So he decides he's going to get his revenge. And they have a funeral for the McGlorias and for Billy Clanton, and all the cowboys show up for it. They turn out. And not long after that, Virgil, the lawman in charge here, he's shot 5 times with a shotgun. He's ambushed. They shoot him 5 times with a shotgun. Oof. He lives, loses the use of his arm.
Bushwhackers.
Yeah, they bushwhack him. They ambush him, shoot him 5 times with a shotgun. He lives and continues being a sheriff with one arm. He loses the use of one of his arms, but he goes off into California and continues to be a sheriff. And then not long after that, in March of 1882, the younger brother, Morgan, is shot twice in the back while he's playing pool. He's in a saloon with Wyatt, and they basically drive by him. They shoot him in the back, and they put a 3rd round in that hits the wall like 2 inches next to Wyatt's head, but misses him.
That was low.
Yeah, that's low. But they shouldn't be. What's the thing about like if you're gonna go for the guy, you better aim for the head, right? You better not miss, because Wyatt Earp is upset about this.
Yeah,
about having one
come
brother.
For the king, you don't you best not miss or whatever.
Yeah, it's something like that, right?
Yeah,
I couldn't remember the phrase exactly.
Omar, the great philosopher.
Yes,
Omar.
that's right. That's right. Okay, so the Wyatt wants his revenge. He's gonna go put Virgil on a train heading out of town to get like better surgical help, and although they actually have like one of the best surgeons in the country is living in Tombstone at the time, this guy named George Goodfellow. He's described as being the world's foremost expert on treating gunshot wounds. And he's sometimes credited with being like America's first trauma surgeon, but he was like the local doctor in Tombstone, Arizona.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's how you become an expert in treating gunshot wounds, is by hanging out at a place where there's a lot of gunshot wounds.
Yes. So this guy treated a lot of gunshot wounds, and but they send Virgil out of town because this town's not safe anymore for him. So the cowboys know he's leaving, and they get the drop on him at the train station. So it's Ike Clanton and this other cowboy named Frank Stillwell, who is probably the dude that shot Morgan Earp in the back and killed him. These 2 guys jump out and they start to shoot at Virgil Earp, who's very seriously injured. But Wyatt's there, and Wyatt gets the drop on him. He pulls the gun and he shoots at both both these guys.
I like that. There's two drops. They think they're getting the drop on him, but someone's getting the drop on them. This is good stuff.
Yes, Wyatt Earp pops out. He blows Frank Stillwell away with 2 rounds of buckshot from a 12-gauge shotgun, and then pulls a 6-shooter and is shooting at Ike Clanton, who once again is running away.
He's got to be fast.
Yes, he's probably fast. Then Wyatt puts together what's called like the revenge ride, and this is some wild story that we don't know all the details of, like, did this happen, when, like, what the extent of it was, but Wyatt Earp decides, him and Doc Holliday get together and they decide they're going to get all these guys. So it's Doc Holliday, Wyatt, it's the lesser known Earp brother Warren Earp, and 2 guys one of them's named Sherman McMasters, which is a great name. And the other one is Jack Johnson, but he goes by Turkey Creek Jack Johnson. It's not the banana pancakes guy.
Okay.
And so these guys go on this vengeance ride and kill every cowboy they can find. This is like the Punisher, they, we don't know all of the details of it because Wyatt didn't really talk about it very much. But if you were in the Cowboys, they came and found you. So
I just want to say that this part of the movie Tombstone is visualized in the form of just another badass montage. Instead of walking slowly, now they're riding. They're riding,
yes,
and they're shooting guys. Riding, shooting, riding, shooting. That's it. It's all montage. Just revenge ride is a great way to.
Yeah, that's how we're gonna approach this in the podcast too. Indian Charlie, Florentino Cruz, some guy named Freeze. They were part of the gang. They all wind up dead from gunshot wounds in various parts of the Arizona territories. Usually killed by a 45 or shotgun at close range. Johnny Ringo, we haven't talked about him very much, but he's part of the Cowboys gang. He's Michael Biehn in the movie. He's such an amazing character.
Fantastic.
in the movie. But he's found dead at the base of a tree with a single gunshot wound to the skull. One of the leaders of the gang was this guy Curly Bill. He turns up dead as well. There's this story that it's like in Tombstone, where the story goes that they had set up an ambush. Like, he was one of the last guys left of these cowboys, and he knew that the revenge riders were coming for him, and he'd set up an ambush for them. And they were marching, and he breaks out. He's got some of his guys. They open fire, and Wyatt Earp is like super pissed off, and he just walks straight up to Curly Bill with everybody shooting at him, and nothing hits him, and he just like blows them away from point blank range, which is how it appears in the movie. But that's like that's a true story. That's a true story. That's the official version of how Curly Bill is killed.
I think in the movie it's just Kurt Russell's just going, no.
Yeah. Yes.
No. And that's all he says. No. And he just like they couldn't come up with anything else to write there, I guess. But
the Revenge Riders don't get Ike Clanton. In 1887, he is shot in the back while running away from police for a different reason. But he stayed true to his MO of running away anytime weapons were drawn. But finally, somebody was shooting at him while he was running away and actually hit him, and he died. And that's good enough for Wyatt.
Yeah.
Okay, so Wyatt, for somehow, you said there's like a lot of, politics involved and law enforcement involved here, but for whatever reason, he doesn't get arrested for all of these murders. He ends up in California running a saloon, and him and Doc, they don't go to jail for committing all of these murders. They just leave town. They leave Arizona, and that's it. All good.
All right.
Oh, they crossed state lines. I don't know. There's not much we could do. Killed 12 guys, but
so no court hearings after that.
No court hearings after that. Yeah, we're good. So Doc Holliday, who has kind of been, we started with him, and we've kind of gone on to Earp here and told the Wyatt Earp gunfight at the OK Corral story and the revenge ride. But Doc was there for all of this. He was partners with Wyatt. I mean, I love the line from the movie where it's like I got lots of friends, Doc, and he's like, well, I don't, and that was Doc. He's riding around, and Doc for these guys was the most terrifying, even more so than Earp, because Earp was a relentless self-promoter. He talked big. He had a big personality, but Doc was like a crazy man. Like he was getting sicker and sicker from his tuberculosis. He's dying, right? He's a dead man as far as he knows, as far as he's concerned. And he's seen from his mother how bad it can be when you were like in the final stages of dying from consumption. And, you know, in some ways, there's this idea that like he would have rather just died with a gun in his hands than go out the way his mom did. And so he was crazy. Like he didn't fear death at all. He wanted to like go to Valhalla basically. And so that made him a very dangerous enemy for these guys. And a lot of them were scared of him when they deputize him. And when he rolls up to the gunfight of the OK Corral, some of these guys are like, now I know I'm in real trouble. Doc's here. But he survives, you know, despite his best efforts, he survives and ends up in Leadville, Colorado, which is the city or the town in the U.S. with the highest elevation. So it's high up in the mountains of the Colorado Rockies. They do a marathon up there where you do a marathon through the mountains of Leadville. It's like one of the hardest races you can do.
I'm not a doctor, but it seems like that would be bad for consumption.
He said it helped him. And so my dad lived in Leadville for a while. My dad went on like the Doc Holliday tour or whatever. My dad lived in Leadville for like 2 years. And he was like, he lived above the bar across the street from Doc Holliday's old house. So like his front window looked out into Doc Holliday's old apartment in Leadville, apparently. And my dad would say like, you know, they have all this cool historical stuff there. They have some Doc Holliday stuff there, but like it's such a high altitude that when you walk from it's this tiny little town, right? But you walk from one end of Main Street to the other, you're out of breath because there's like no oxygen up there.
Yeah.
But
I guess I would have guessed if your lungs were filling up and you were having trouble with breathing, seems like it would be a bad idea. But again, not a doctor, so
don't know. I don't know. So maybe just nobody could breathe up there. It wasn't that weird that he was always sucking for air.
Yeah, able to blend in.
Yeah. So he goes there. He lives in Leadville. He gets sicker. At some point, he gets addicted to opium, and
seems fair.
Yeah, it was a treatment for his condition, right? It was like a prescription to opium or laudanum or whatever it was, opium, and he dies at age 37 in Glenwood Springs, Colorado. He dies of consumption at the same age his mother was when she died of consumption. He dies in his bed. Quietly, and according to the stories, his last words were, "This is funny." Like he expected to die in a gunfight.
In the movie, they framed it as like he looks down and he sees his, sees his socks. He's dying with his boots off, which I think did not expect.
Yeah. And then his legend kind of grows because this OK Corral is one of the last big gunfights, maybe the last like major gunfight in American history, kind of the end of the Wild West time period. And Wyatt Earp, we said, was a relentless self-promoter. He goes to California and he writes about Doc and writes this very glowing reviews of Doc Holliday as like the most badass man I ever met. He was awesome. He always said the right thing. He was very clever. He was brave. He was absolutely fearless. He was a great gunfighter, the best shooter I ever saw, a loyal friend. Writes this very glowing stories about Doc. The sheriff of Dodge City was Bat Masterson, who's also a famous cowboy. He wrote a story about Doc in 1907 that made him talked about him as being like one of these amazing characters from history. Here's a weird thing is that Wyatt Earp lives through World War I and dies in 1926. And he's kind of becomes famous. He's living in California, running saloons and stuff, but he tells everybody about the good old days, and his ability to promote himself is part of what makes the gunfight at the OK Corral such a famous story. And it continues on today because Val Kilmer's portrayal of him in that movie is part of what helps his legend, right? There was a dentist and he got into a gunfight in Arizona in 1881. It's not as interesting as reading Wyatt Earp doing this huge aggrandizing version of the story, or then watching Val Kilmer be super unbelievably badass in this movie keeps the story alive, Well,
I mean, that's exactly it. The movie is now a part of the story because so many of the stories we talk about here are sort of stories that have been recounted by one person to another, handed down, and then rewritten sometimes in ways that, maybe veer a little bit more exciting than perhaps they were. And, some of those stories, sometimes that happens, 500 years ago, and we're looking at that as like part of the sort of helping us understand the history of what happened. And sometimes that story happened only 30 years ago in the form of a big Hollywood blockbuster. And it's the same thing. It's all part of the storytelling of these people and these characters. And as, we keep doing it. And so Tombstone, like I said, I think it's great. It's fun. And it does keep, Doc alive in ways that you wouldn't expect.
And it still holds up because we both watched it recently for the podcast. And
I think everyone watched it recently. You pop on any of the streaming apps, and Tombstone was like on Apple. It's in the top 10, or I don't remember what app I watched, but it was like top 10 in all the streaming apps over the past couple weeks. And I think we have Val Kilmer to thank for that. Obviously, it's an incredibly entertaining movie, but in an interesting way, Val Kilmer himself has now kept the story of Doc Holliday alive. This character from 150 years ago or whatever.
Yeah. And his portrayal is as good as you could get from the legends of Doc Holliday and the stories we have about him. Val Kilmer, he kind of channeled Jim Morrison for The Doors, and he channeled Doc Holliday for Tombstone. And this is, from what we know about Doc Holliday, this is how we could picture him, probably with some degree of accuracy, which is very cool. And people go back and they still think about him. People don't watch the Star Trek episode where Captain Kirk beats up Wyatt Earp. They don't watch that one as much as they go back and watch Tombstone. They don't watch the Costner one as much.
I know the Costner one. It's okay.
It's
but
fine.
Now I do wish, I'm like, man, we missed out on having a real Doc Holliday Val Kilmer. So they should have made the prequel.
Yeah, I know, right? The first half, that story is pretty wild as well.
Yeah.
Kirk Douglas I'm going to do a weird transition here because Kirk Douglas plays Doc Holliday. Before Tombstone, there was a gunfight at the OK Corral movie from the 50s.
Yes,
that was really popular, and that was people were super into that when it came out. And Kirk Douglas plays Doc Holliday in that. And you had just suggested to me a movie where Michael Douglas is with Val Kilmer and they're fighting lions or something. So
it's all connected. Yeah.
Another weird thing about Doc Holliday in popular culture is that Dennis and Randy Quaid have both played him.
Dennis and Randy Quaid have both played Doc Holliday.
Doc Holliday, yeah.
Really?
It's weird, right?
What movie? What? When? Where did I miss this?
Well, Dennis Quaid plays him in the Kevin Costner one, but
okay, right.
Randy Quaid plays him in a different movie. TV movie called Purgatory in 1999. I've never seen it, but
remember that movie.
It popped up in the IMDb when I was looking at portrayals of Doc Holliday.
Yeah. Wow. That is silly.
Yeah, it's silly.
Yeah. But I love it. Fantastic. Yes. That's the legend of Doc Holliday for you there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's our story for today. We hope that you guys liked listening to it. And if you did, please do like and subscribe and leave us a nice review on whatever service you're listening to this on, because that sort of thing really helps our ratings, helps more people find the show. And we would like to get these stories out to more people. So you'd be doing history a favor. I don't know. Does that sound too... It sounds like
you're gonna change the world, guys.
It's gonna be life-changing for me personally.
Yeah, just do us a solid.
All right, well, thank you guys for listening, and we will see you next week with another episode.
Stay badass.
Badass of the Week is produced by High Five Content. Executive producers are me, Ben Thompson, Dr. Patricia Larish, and Andrew Jacobs. Writing is by me and Pat. Story editing by Ian Jacobs. Mixing and music and sound design by Jude Brewer. Special thanks to Noel Brown at iHeartRadio. Badass of the Week is based on my website, badassoftheweek.com, where you can read all sorts of stories about other badasses. If you want to reach out with questions or ideas, you can email us at badasspodcast@badassoftheweek.com. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, follow, listen, and tell your friends and tell your enemies. And please leave us a rating. We'll be back next week with another one.